Hello and welcome to a new video and day 2 on board the beautiful Nordstjernen. And today we are going far up north. We start at the Magdalena Fjord and then we go to Grafenset, Smerenberg, and in the evening we are going to Muffen, 80 degrees north. And on the map you can see the route that we're gonna take today. We start early in the morning in the Magdalena Fjord at 7:30. We got the wake-up call. And our first destination today was another glacier. Here we can already see a big piece of ice that has been in this bay for a few weeks or even months. And as you can see, there is more and more ice in the fjord, and that means that we're gonna get closer to an active glacier. And here you can also see how colorful it is if you look a little bit closer. Gray mountains, green moss, turquoise water, the white ice, a lot of colors. And here we have some special ice. We call this piece of ice the anchor. And then we sailed as close as possible to the glacier, and then we could enjoy the view of the glacier during our breakfast. But then we started turning and we headed to the point of our first landing today, and that was at Grafenset. That is a small headland, and there we had the perfect conditions to land with our small boats. Here you can see one of these small boats, and we used them to get ashore when we had our landings. And for using these tender boats, we received some high-grade life vests. And here you can see me with one of these life vests that we had to wear, and you saw that I was wearing a mask, but that was only required when we were queuing up to go on the tender boats. But on the rest of the ship there was no mask requirement, and actually there were almost no COVID rules anymore. The only thing we had to do was a test before we come on board, and that is quite useful because you don't want to have COVID on the ship. You saw how small my cabin is, and also it can get very expensive if you need to quarantine in Longyearbyen after the cruise. So it was very useful that we took a test before we came to Svalbard. And here you can see the reason why this is an expedition and not a cruise, and that you need to be fit to do an expedition like this, because this is how we left the tender boats and went ashore. So this is absolutely not comparable to a cruise, because here you really need to be fit to participate in all the adventures that we're gonna have on this cruise. And here you see our basic equipment for each landing. Of course, also here we need to take the guns with us. Of course, not us, but the guides need to take them. And we had the rule to stay always around 20 meters around our guide. Of course, before we start the landing, the guides will check from the ship if they can see a polar bear, and then they will go ashore first, check there again for polar bears, and only if it's safe, then we can go ashore as well. But still they need to have the gun just in worst case that a polar bear appears. They also have alarm pistols, so first they will use this alarm pistol to scare off the polar bear that's enough in most of the cases, and only in the worst case they need to use their actual gun. Grafneset used to be an whale hunting settlement, and today it is a big grave because all these whale hunters, they knew that it was very dangerous. For example, if you fell off the ship during whale hunting back then, that was actually your death sentence. There was almost no chance to survive in the cold water. So the whale hunters even brought their own coffins, and then they had this place. So if somebody died, they were buried here. But it's not possible to bury someone here because of the permafrost. So what they did instead was burying the coffins with stones, and that's why this place here is a little bit like a hill. That is because of all the graves. And that's also why there is a fence. This is one of only 2 fences on the whole of Svalbard, but there is a fence to make sure that no visitors accidentally step on a grave. And then we hiked a little bit up the hill, and here I can show you a few shots of the plants that you can see here. And then it was time to head back to Nordstjernen. We took the tender back, and here you can see the crystal clear water. You can see how clean this water is. That was absolutely amazing to see how clean the water is. And on board it was already time for lunch, and lunch was always served as a buffet. And during lunch we set sail and headed to Smerenburg, where we should arrive at around 3 o'clock in the afternoon. And here you can see those rocks, the grey rocks on the shore, and there are always some white rocks in between. And of course you're excited, you want to see polar bear, so whenever you see a white rock you think it's a polar bear, and in the end it turns out that everybody on the ship took millions of pictures of white rocks. And here we saw a puffin. These are my favorite animals, so I was very happy to see a puffin, and we saw many more on the rest of the cruise. And then we saw another special animal. We saw our first walrus swimming freely in the water. So that was something special too. Usually you can see them on sandbanks in big groups, but here we saw one just swimming on its own. So that was quite nice to see. Here you can see clearly it's a walrus, not just a normal seal, as you can clearly see the tusks. But we were supposed to see many more of them, because Smerenburg, our next destination, that is a sandbank, and there are usually a lot of walruses. And all the way there I was standing at the bow and enjoying the beautiful landscape. And exactly like in the last video, I will not speak all the time, because whenever no explanation is needed, I will just let you enjoy the beautiful landscape and the animals. But if there's something to explain, of course there will be a comment from my side. And here we are now slowly approaching Smeerenburg, our next destination of the day. And this was also something special again, because I was at the bow and we were allowed to watch the anchoring of the ship. So on a cruise ship, of course, you will not even have access to the bow, but you're for sure very far away from all these maneuvers. But here we could really watch them drop the anchor. Of course, we needed to keep a safety distance in case something goes wrong, that the chain is breaking or something. You need to have a safe distance, but you got pretty close and you could really see how it's working. And here you can see the walruses, so we were lucky they were there, and so our guides went ashore first, checking that there are no polar bears, and then it was time for us to go ashore as well. And of course we took the tenders again for the next landing, and this time it was a perimeter landing, which means that the guides were securing a specific area, and in this area we could walk around freely. So we did not need to stay 20 meters around the guide, but we had a certain area in which we could walk around freely. But there were of course many rules. The first one was to keep quiet, so no talking, no fast walking, no zippers or anything else that's making a loud noise to not scare off the walruses. And of course you also needed to keep a distance of at least 30 meters to the walruses. If they're laying on the beach, they look very kind and friendly and they're not looking very dangerous. But if you see their tusks, you should already decide by yourself to keep a bit of a distance to them. Here you can see I'm walking very, very carefully and calm, and then we could go as close as this to the walruses, and that was very impressive to see them so close and to watch them. And that's what I'm gonna let you do now. Watch and enjoy the walruses. And then we saw another animal. We saw a seal, and that was actually the only seal that we saw on our whole expedition. And once again, here you can see how clear the water is, and here you can see some of the very few leftovers of the former settlement of Smeerenburg. It was another whale hunting settlement. And here you can see a small boat in the distance, and that was actually the first sighting of human beings, except our ship, that we had the whole day. And there you can see how remote this place actually is. Yeah, and then it was time to slowly head back to the Nordstjernen. We took a tender and got back on board. And then it was time for the biggest highlight of the whole expedition, and something that I was not expecting to see. I was hoping for it all time, but I wasn't honestly not expecting to get this lucky. But we actually saw a polar bear. First we took our tenders in, and then we headed to a place called Muffen, and on the way there was an announcement that they actually spotted a polar bear. So everybody ran out, and we were so lucky that the polar bear was clearly visible walking, and he was very close to our ship, and we were following it with our ship. So we had quite a long time an excellent view of a polar bear, and that was like a dream coming true for all of us on board. And actually very close to the polar bear were also some reindeers. You can see them running here in the background. But we were focusing, of course, on the polar bear. And then we got lucky again, because then he was walking very photogenic in front of a glacier. But after that, we let him alone and headed to Muffen. And meanwhile, we arrived at the northern tip of Spitsbergen, and I spent most of the afternoon on the foredeck. There was not much to see, no animals except for birds, but it was such an impressive feeling to know that there's nothing north of us. There's just water, and then there is the North Pole. But no more islands, most probably no more ships, nothing. That was really, really impressive, and I really enjoyed this moment and this feeling, and so I spent another few hours at the foredeck. Especially if you take a look on Google Maps and you go to that place where we were in this moment and you try to go further north, it's not possible because the map of Google Maps is just ending there. So that's actually really impressive. And then it was time for dinner. Dinner is always served in the evening, and there is no choice, there's just one main course, and if you don't like it, you need to check the menu in the afternoon, and until 3 o'clock you can let the crew know. If you don't like the dinner, then you will get something else, but otherwise there is no choice. So once again, this is an expedition, not a cruise, so the focus is a bit different. And then we arrived at Muffen and we were crossing 80 degrees north, and to celebrate this there was a small meeting with some champagne, and now we can hear how the crossing of 80 degrees north sounded like.
Thank you. And right now we have a few polar bears which are the more northern than us, and also the captain driving the ship. But we might be the most northern people on the planet, but that's a special thing. And from here there is approximately 1,112 kilometers to the North Pole. Together I say cheers for 80 degrees. Cheers!
This was also such an impressive moment to know that you're one of the northernmost people on the whole planet. Was an undescribable feeling. Maybe there are a few fishermen more north than us, but there are for sure not many people being more northern than we are. And here we can finally see the sandbank of Muffen, our destination for this evening. This time there was no landing, we were just watching the animals from the ship. And we didn't stay for too long because it was already pretty late in the evening, so we just stayed there to watch the animals for a few minutes, and then we were heading back south. And once again, crossing 80 degrees north is something very special. Not many people will do this in their whole life, so it is something very, very special. To get a better impression of what it means to cross 80 degrees north. Some of you may have a polar certificate that you're gonna get if you cross the Arctic Circle. You will get this on most cruise ships when you cross the Arctic Circle. There's usually a small ceremony and you will get this certificate and this ceremony when you cross around 66 degrees north. And now we're at 80 degrees north. And I have another comparison just to have an impression of what kind of distance these 14 degrees actually are. For example, the city of Harwich in the UK is located at 52 degrees north. So the distance from Harwich in the UK to the Arctic Circle is the same distance from the Arctic Circle to the place where we are right now. I think this gives a better impression how far north we actually are in this moment. And the best thing we could do to process this incredible moment was enjoying a beautiful sunset outside on the front at the bow of the ship, and I was doing that once again for quite a while. And then there was some dark clouds showing up, and it was starting to rain in the distance, so it was promising some very beautiful light again, like yesterday when the last sun rays and the rain were meeting. Here we have an impressive cloud, and this amazing color happened because there was the rain and the sun was illuminating the rain from behind, and then we got this amazing orange cloud. And that was something special because the hotel manager also stayed outside with me and she was taking pictures herself. And that's always a sign on a cruise ship or an expedition ship that you see something special if the crew is starting to take pictures as well. But then shortly after midnight I decided that it's now time to go to sleep, because I will have to wake up early again on the next day. Every day at 7:30 was the wake up call and 8 o'clock was the breakfast, so I wanted to get at least a little bit of sleep. And with this beautiful last sun rays on a glacier, I finally decided to go to sleep now. So that's it for day 2 on board of Nordstjernen. I know this was a very long video, but it was a very impressive day and we saw many things. So I hope you enjoyed this video, I hope you liked it. Here you can see the name of the music and when my next English video, the video of day 3, will be uploaded. And once again, thank you for watching. I hope you liked this video, and if you did, please consider to like, comment, subscribe or share the video link.